With the launch of Legend ZA, the story of the Kalos region continues, as well as just kind of getting more information on the history of the Kalos region. All this is really interesting to me. In fact, this is a dream come true, if I'm honest. And today, we'll be going over all of it, a complete history of the Kalos region. Welcome back to the post where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we'll be going over everything that has happened in Kalos' history all the way up to the present day. So, if by whatever reason you have not finished Pokemon Legends ZA yet and want to remain unspoiled, please hit watch this video later so that you can check it out another time, because we will be going over the events, including the big finale of Legends ZA. Now, to cover the history of the Kalos region, we just have to talk about how rich this history is. In fact, to begin, we have to go all the way back to 3,000 years ago. So 3,000 years ago, the Kalos region fought in a war against another region. We don't currently know what region it is, but I think that an argument could be made this could be the Galar region, just because we do also know for a fact that the Kalos region and the Galar region, at least at one point in history, had some tense relations, which it kind of lines up with the real-world locations that inspired the Kalos and Galar regions, England and France, because they have had a rocky history as well. But during this war, there was a man named AZ, and he had a Floette that was participating in this war. And ultimately, he lost his Floette to the war. Floette died. So AZ, in grief, decided to create a device that would give Floette life again. It would resurrect Floette. This device, however, had to be taking the life to give from somewhere, so it took life from other Pokemon to restore Floette. This device not only succeeded in resurrecting Floette, but it also gave Floette and AZ a near immortal lifespan. He then was still angry. This war took his Floette from him. Reviving Floette isn't enough. No, they need to pay. So AZ converted this device into a weapon called the Ultimate Weapon, and he fired it on this region that they were fighting against. And he was successful. This weapon hit the opposing region and killed countless, who knows how many people and Pokemon, and it resulted in, of course, the end of this war. However, this act of violence, as well as the revelation of the amount of Pokemon that had to be killed to restore Floette, made Floette turn away from the man. It couldn't stand by his side after he had done such horrible things. So Floette left the man, and the man was left to just wander the world for 3,000 years. This firing of the Ultimate Weapon also had other consequences. It seems that the blast from this, the amount of infinity energy that this sent out across the world, created the very first Mega Stones. This is, of course, still theorized, but there's good evidence for it. Fast forward to 1,000 years later, as AZ still roams the earth, waiting for the day that Floette has seen that he has changed his ways, he comes across a man of great power in the Kalos region. This man wants to create a weapon to defend Kalos from any opposing region. So the man asked AZ to help him on this quest. AZ did indeed help this man build a weapon. He called it Ainge, and it lied within the infrastructure of Kalos' most central landmark, the Prism Tower. However, not wanting to repeat past mistakes and anger his Floette even further, AZ made it where this device could only be controlled through the use of Mega Floette, by Mega evolving his own Floette. Now, this of course meant that AZ couldn't use the weapon, as again, Floette had left him and was no longer with him, so he didn't have a way to activate the device, but the device was created to solely be controlled by Mega Floette and its trainer. And then, eventually, we go through another 2,000 years of AZ wandering the Earth. And sure, some advancements happen, like the Kalos region expands and, becomes a big tourist place, a big fashion place, a big battle place. Mega Evolution becomes a phenomenon that trainers flock to the Kalos region to discover and maybe even get a chance to use themselves. But it's only recently, it's within the last 5 years, that AZ's past actions start to come back. You see, there was a wealthy man in the Kalos region who also happened to be a distant relative of AZ named Lysander. Lysander used his funds for a lot of good. He created several different things that helped to build up the Kalos region and encourage not just technological advancement, but even communication across Kalos, such as the Holocaster, a device that would allow you to communicate with your loved ones as if they're right here in the room with you. Lysander also started an organization called Team Flare, with their whole mission being to make the world a more beautiful place, as they worried about the amount of resources that would one day be depleted to the point where people are having to fight over it. And when people are fighting, well, that's not such a beautiful world. It was really a noble goal, but Lysander became obsessed with this mission, and eventually he became too obsessed and ended up discovering Ainge and the ultimate weapon. Lysander, along with his top Team Flare scientists, plotted to activate both of these weapons. The ultimate weapon over in Geosinge Town, as well as Ainge within Prism Tower of Lumio City. In order to activate these weapons, however, he would need two things. For one, for the ultimate weapon, he would need a key to activate it. And then for Ainge, of course, as I stated earlier, he would need the Eternal Flower Floette, and specifically, he would need to Mega Evolve this Pokemon. Lysander ended up finding a wandering AZ and imprisoned him, and on AZ's person was a key. This was the key that Lysander needed to activate the ultimate weapon that lied underneath Geosinge Town. He could not, however, find the Eternal Flower Floette, and thus he could not activate Ainge, and so he had to kind of just abandon that goal completely and focus solely on the ultimate weapon that lied underneath Geosinge Town. Lysander and his scientists were successful in capturing the legendary Pokemon of the Kalos region, Xerneas, a Pokemon that is capable of giving life, and Yveltal, a Pokemon that is capable of taking away life, even being said to end all life on Earth when its own life runs out. He was able to, with these legendary Pokemon's power, fire the ultimate weapon once again. However, a group of trainers from Vanillville Town and Lumio City in the Kalos region were able to kind of subdue the legendary Pokemon, making this blast not quite as effective, not affect the entire world, but instead just come right back down on top of the ultimate weapon. This ultimately saved the world and destroyed the ultimate weapon as it collapsed back down into the depths of Geosinge Town, and Lysander was caught under this destruction and was ultimately buried under the rubble. Not only this, but he was granted eternal life. So Lysander's fate was that he was buried alive. He got the same kind of immortality that he sought and that AZ and Floette obtained, but he was stuck underground until the legendary Pokemon Zygarde saved him from the rubble. Lysander had now lost his memories, however, perhaps from the blast of the ultimate weapon and being so close under it. So he now decided to help Zygarde on its quest to bring balance to the ecosystem, as well as now taking on the name L. He no longer went by Lysander, he went by L. A kind of symbol of how he is not the man that he once was. To celebrate the actions of the heroes of Geosinge Town, a giant award ceremony was held in Lumio City, and at this ceremony, AZ appeared before the crowd and was reunited with his Floette, who recognized AZ's actions in kind of helping this trainer who had stopped the ultimate weapon figure out how to stop it, and that made Floette realize that AZ regretted his actions, and so she returned to his side. Team Flare then became outcasts of society, which, rightfully so. They did fire a weapon that would have killed millions of people. Billions, in fact. So, fair enough. The scientists of Team Flare, who had helped Lysander so closely with his activation of the ultimate weapon, were arrested. There was a little incident with a man named Xerosic, one of the head scientists of Team Flare, as he caused some havoc in Lumio City, but a member of the International Police Force, as well as one of the trainers who had stopped the legendary Pokemon, the ultimate weapon, in the Geosinge crisis, managed to stop Xerosic's troubles in Lumio City, and Xerosic ultimately turned himself in. While it isn't exactly defined how long after these events this happened. We also do know another one of the scientists, a scientist named Mabel, was able to strike a plea deal that allowed her to avoid imprisonment, but at the cost of she would now have to help investigate why wild Pokemon are coming in droves into Lumio City, and would now serve as the acting director of the Pokemon Research Laboratory found in Lumio City. There was also, during this time, a new generation of Team Flare that was ultimately being raised by the old generation to kind of continue to live on. These Team Flare people, they now go by Team Flare Nouveau, were outcast by society, abandoned by Team Flare, and ultimately left to just be bitter and to form their own food truck. But you see, with the firing of this ultimate weapon that we saw happen in Geosinge Town from Lysander, there were some other consequences. First off, there was the fact that new Megastones were now created by this blast, seemingly giving credit to the idea that the first Megastones were created by the first Ultimate Weapons blast 3,000 years ago. Also, another thing that happened, though nobody really knew this, is that the shockwave of Mega Energy that came off of the Ultimate Weapon's second firing seemed to disturb Ainge over in Lumio City, and was ultimately powering it up slowly and slowly, filling it with Mega Energy, which then, in turn, was making Ainge beginning to go rogue, as well as also causing a surge of Mega Energy in Lumio City, leading to Mega Crystals appearing throughout the city, and even some Pokemon who are wild becoming rogue and even Mega Evolving, which is something that wild Pokemon are not really known for doing. This also seems to be the cause of why so many wild Pokemon were flocking to Lumio City, though again, no one knew that at the time. 3 years later, with Ainge's power growing stronger and stronger, these Mega Crystals and Rogue Mega Evolutions were occurring more and more frequently, so AZ began working with the company Quasartico Inc., who were trying to build a better Lumiose for both the people and the new Pokemon inhabitants they had. AZ and Quasartico Inc. realized that they needed to shut down Ainge by having Mega Floette control the tower. However, they would need a really powerful trainer to be able to control Mega Floette and Ainge. And AZ was no longer capable of doing this, as he was 3,000 years old, so even though he's lived quite some time, he still had the wear and tear that the body would take after being alive for so long. So they came up with a plan. They devised a tournament that would take place at the nighttime of Lumio City called the ZA Royale. This tournament would ultimately allow them to figure out who the strongest trainer is, as eventually one day someone would make it to the very top. This would be the trainer that they'd realize had the potential to control Mega Floette and in turn Ainge. And then that brings us to the present, 2 years after that. There were 2 trainers who did manage to climb through the ranks of the ZA Royale. One of these trainers was kind of chosen by Eternal Flower Floette, if you will. They befriended it and AZ. And then the other trainer was a newcomer to Lumio City, but seemed to win the approval of Zygarde, who came to the trainer with L to kind of show it that there is a crisis that trainer was needed for, and it even gave the trainer a pebble. Both of these trainers even proved to not only be great trainers who could work their way through the ranks of the ZA Royale, but even capable trainers who were able to take on the rogue Mega Evolving Pokemon themselves and subdue them. L then eventually told Zygarde's chosen trainer the truth about Ainge and the ultimate weapon having activated it, the truth of AZ's sins. And so, together with the trainer who bonded with Floette and some of their friends, these trainers took on Ainge, and the trainer who bonded with Floette Mega Evolved the Pokemon to try to control the tower. However, it was ultimately too late, and the tower seemed to almost in turn take control over Mega Floette, and Zygarde's chosen trainer was kind of left to have to take on Ainge himself alongside Zygarde. And the trainer was successful. It turns out that that pebble that Zygarde had given the trainer was actually a Zygardeite, a Mega Stone used to Mega Evolve Zygarde, something that had previously thought to be impossible. Zygarde was not a Pokemon that was known to be able to Mega Evolve. This new Mega Evolve form of Zygarde was able to fight back against the blast of Ainge and ultimately destroy Ainge, saving Lumio City and probably eventually the world. AZ then passed away as, You know, it turns out that it wasn't true immortality, but just a very, very extended lifespan that he was given. And, well, his time had run its course. His body was too weak, and he did ultimately pass on. And L eventually even left the side of Zygarde, as Zygarde now joined the side of the trainer that it had chosen. And this is the full history of the Kalos region. It's a very rich history. There seems to even be more in there, as we again know that there seemed to be tension, at least at one point, between the Kalos region and the Galar region. You could speculate on what exactly that means. I'll tell you this, I definitely have a video planned that will go into my own speculation on what it means, but these are just the facts of what we know. If this kind of stuff interests you, then be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications, as this is the kind of stuff I love to talk about most on this channel. I appreciate you guys watching the video. I appreciate you guys being Kalos lore fanatics like myself. And until next time, I will see all of you later.